Hello, party people. Let's make sure we're working. Hello. Hello, party people. All right. I know we are in business now, so let's go ahead and get started for the week. You see my fun little welcome back here on the screen. Again, just welcoming back you to another week of working on this project with me after the Houston Astros have won their first World Series. At least in the last couple of years, and the last official one, they might call it. But so we've had the end of the baseball season now. So now we're really just working on this project. No more baseball to watch and enjoy, which is sad, but let's do it. It's going to be a fun time. We've got a lot in store today. I did fix some of the problems from last week. So last week we were having some issues, if you remember, which you can actually go back to that video too. That video is available. I've put the timestamps in and everything. So if you pull up, you go to Let's Learn MLB. Let's learn data science with Sam. All right, and we've got it. MLB sports betting model, Python day 2, data investigation, and we've got the chapters in there. So I did have an issue last week where the screen froze pretty much through most of the coding. Luckily, we didn't get a whole lot done because I was having a lot of issues with PyBaseball getting set up. So the chapters are in here. I'm going to take you through the Conda setup. I do take you through when I move over to the iPad and we start to write these things out. So just highly recommend you to go check that out. I mean, we are building every week, so we also have the first week to go back and reference. We have this week to go back and reference. I would recommend watching this section, this draw it out section. This is really going to introduce you to the use case, kind of what we're working on, and give you a really good idea of what it is that we're trying to do throughout this project. Throughout this project. So that's a little bit about that. All these tabs actually have open our PyBaseball stuff. So some work I was doing over the weekend on it. So anyway, that is that. Just want to let you know, go back and watch the last video. Do have a lot of stuff up here, so I want to take you through this. So part 1 last time, just review last video, what we'll discuss today. So today, we're actually going to be diving into the data. Today, we're actually going to be diving into what we're working on. I will pay more attention to the screen in case it freezes. I have it up here, over here, so I can watch myself as I go. If the screen freezes, I'll see it, and I'll pull it off. So we're also no longer having the same problems importing the modules like we were. So if you stayed around for when the screen froze and you listened to the audio, you know I had a lot of issues getting some modules to import from PyBaseball. I fixed that. Actually, there was an issue on GitHub, but then I figured out exactly why it was going on. So we fixed everything we needed to fix, which is great. So that's done. And so direction for today. I've decided to move forward with batter info. Decided that's just what I wanted to collect. I wanted to get offensive power. I wanted to get offense. And we'll dive into some documentation, and then we'll jump right into coding. So again, not too much preparation coming from my end. I want a lot of this to be live. I want you to see it happen. That's the most important part for me. That we can do it together. That's been the whole point of this. That'll continue being the purpose. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead. I'll actually pull up a fresh slide there, or a fresh internet browser. And let's move over to PyBaseball again. So we do want PyBaseballs. We do want to be able to reference the documentation, right? So we have the documentation. Let's also get our coding environment up. So Command K clears it, and then let's get our environment up. So again, conda env list, conda activate over under project. pick it out into the right directory, over under project, and let's open up VS Code. Great. Screen is still working. So let's check out some of what we worked on last time. So some of what we worked on last time is PyBaseball, getting the Statcast in, pandas, regular expressions, looking at some of the Statcast data. PyBaseball, so we imported Clayton Kershaw, this player table, which will be important for us like throughout everything we're working on. So we found a way to pull in Kershaw's key, MLB Advanced Media key, just by calling it Statcast pitcher. So we're able to get some of his, let me see, these were specific pitches, yep, because we called hit 2. We got a month worth of game data, so probably 4 to 5 games. And then filter for non-deprecated columns, because we had some deprecated columns, and then I had a lot of issues, I remember. Yep. Awesome. So this is where we made it to last time. Well, we should make it a lot further this time. Just want to acknowledge that we're not having the same issues. So part of what happened last time was these weren't importing. PyBaseball imports Statcast pitcher. But it was other ones. It wasn't just Statcast pitcher. So if we hop into the documentation, we see Statcast pitcher, and that one was working, right? But I couldn't get like anything else down here to work. So pitcher, exit, velocity, barrels, couldn't get that to work. I think everything is working now. So if I just import, so we'll start this off. And we'll try to import it really quick. So from PyBaseball, I think it's working. No, it's not working. Okay, great. So you have to Statcast pitcher. So this is what you have to do. Since it's within the same area as Statcast pitcher, so you see Statcast pitcher markdown, it's within the same .py file. So pull in PyBaseball Statcast pitcher module. And then we're going to import this one specific function. So it's the general pattern is from package.module import function. That's kind of how the general from works. So then you can also do from PyBaseball. This is why this works. So from PyBaseball import Statcast pitcher. So that pattern is from package import module. Then later, and you could do this as sp or something, right? As sp. So then later you can do sp dot statcast pitcher exit velo barrels. And we could run that, right? So move those. Okay, I was wrong, but this definitely is right. From package.module import function. So we do have this working in case we want to pull anything from Statcast pitcher that isn't that main call. And so this actually is right depending on how you installed PyBaseball. So if you installed PyBaseball using the pip, like you cloned in and you pip installed, if you cloned into the Git repo, it works. If you do what I did and you pip install it, it's not going to work, and that's the problem. So from PyBaseball.statcast pitcher, import Statcast pitcher exit velo barrels, or if you cloned in from PyBaseball, import. So they're not keeping up right now. They made some changes in here, so PyPy is not having the most up-to-date version of this. So we see we have a lot of information in here, right? We have pitcher exit velocity, barrels. We have pitcher expected stats, pitcher pitch arsenal. So what are some of their pitches that they throw? And then you can grab, average speed for that pitch or that pitcher. But anyway, some of the information. I do want to focus on batters today. It's what I've been focusing on this week. It is kind of my preference right now. So I'm going to make sure I have some information ready to go on that. Good. I have it. I have some things. We will run through those later. Just want to make sure they're up. So, first things first, let us start a new file. So, batter info, and we'll get up a notebook. And then what are some of the things we need to import? We need to import PyBaseball as PB, import pandas as PD. It doesn't like the environment it's using. Great, it worked. And then I also want to, sorry, clicking around a little bit too much. I want to do the max columns and max rows. So I'm going to pull that in. I know that was there. Set max columns. Oh, and something I do like to do also is like to set a markdown at the beginning of each project, describing at the beginning of each file, describing what this file is supposed to do. So grab batter info, and then I'll do another markdown. Let's do Monday, November 7, author, and finally purpose. So this notebook is to evaluate batter information. What information? I actually want to show you that in a second on the iPad. You want to pull in various batter metrics. Remember we discussed this last time. So metrics could include wins above replacement, could include expected batting average on balls in play, BABIP. That's another good one that I've kind of been identifying of late. Then expected slugging percentage, etc., etc. There's a lot of different metrics we can grab, but these will be some examples. I think we'll start with expected batting average, also plate appearances. Important information, plate appearances is going to roll into sample size, which is important. There we go. Metrics could include WAR, plate appearances, expecting batting average on balls in play, expecting slugging percentage, and etc., etc. So that's kind of the purpose of this. And again, I said I wanted to show you something on the iPad. Let me pull that up really quick. Awesome. So if you remember this from last time, this is some of what I said I wanted to talk about. But again, you see here expected on base percentage, expecting batting average, and wins above replacement. Here I was kind of writing some stuff out, and I was trying to see. So here we have ID, so batter ID. I was thinking fastball expected batting average, curveball expecting batting average, etc., etc. as you go across with the all pitches. I wanted to see if I could get an expected batting average by pitch. Of course, the first thing we need to do, get into a table, right, is, the first table, let's do this. So this is like table 1. What about table 2? Sorry, this is table 2 in and of itself, right? Because we want table 2, Because that's not the first thing we want. First thing we want is ID, plate appearances. So that's going to be important for us. Expected batting average. I think let's start there, right? Like, let's start at getting ID, plate appearances, expecting batting average, because we can understand like a decent amount about a player with the plate appearances and expecting batting average. So we'll get that per player. So this is like table 1. Dang, I can't write. Table 1. So I'm not supposed to be showing you that I'm perfect. And then like another table, table X, we'll call it. I don't know what numbers this table is going to be. But I'm thinking ID, again, plate appearances, handiness, so I should actually replace those two. Handiness and plate appearances. What do I mean by handiness and expecting batting average? I mean handiness of the pitcher. Can you hit a lefty? Can you hit a righty? Same batter, same season, right? Most likely same season. We could do it across seasons too, just depending. But this is going to be useful to us. So this is when we start creating splits. So splits are a term in betting, baseball betting, where you can look at splits. I'm going to do this. Splits, categories. Handiness, inning, ballpark, day night, etc., etc. Goes on and on and on. So there's a lot of different kind of splits you can have in baseball and in betting, but because you have a hitter that maybe they can hit lefties really well, but they can't hit righties really well. Well, that's good to know. And you can know when with the starting pitcher of that matchup, if he's a lefty and your hitter hits well against lefties, that's automatically like, maybe we're not talking over-unders, maybe we're talking player prop. But it could help if, 4 to 5 of your players have really high, especially as of late, have high expecting batting averages, like with lefties, either as of late or total or both, some mixture of the two. Total, we look at career stats, or we look at the whole last season. Some way of actually formulating that calculation, right? But we want to understand how the batters on one team face up against the pitchers in another team, and then we have different splits, right? So the table 1, let's get that. Let's just focus on plate appearances, batting average, expecting batting average. And then let's think about the splits later. So let's think about handiness, inning, ballpark, day, night. How we incorporate all of those things together is also going to be something to think about for maybe not even next time, maybe like 5 times down the road. But we'll work on this for now. So come on back here. And let's start to think about what we're going to do. So we want player ID, plate appearances, and batting average. Expected batting average. Right? So first up, player ID. So remember, we had something in here about a player lookup. Yeah? Cool. Player lookup. player lookup. So I'm going to save us a lot of time because I did a lot of stuff. And it didn't quite work how I wanted it to work. So the player ID lookup is a great resource, but you need the player names. Well, let's start with just one team also. So one team. Let's clear that out. And let's turn this into Markdown. And then let's do data needed. Player ID. Sorry, that moved over. Plate appearances. Expected. Right. And now let's look at just one single team and let's do player ID. So let's also turn this into Markdown. First up, player ID. Start with one team. Nope, I want that to be. All right, we're gonna turn this on Python again. So if we want player ID for one team, and also one team, one game, like let's really get down with this, because let's get as granular as we can, because getting as granular as we can is going to allow us to build inside out. This is essentially how I approach a lot of things at work. It's how I approach a lot of things, I mean, even in my life, right? Like, let's go as deep into it as we can and then see which parts we can generalize from there. So first up, we're going to grab player ID for one team for one game. Let's think about that. How are we going to do that? So we have this player ID lookup. What does that mean? It means we need to enter in the first name and the last name. Okay. So we could look up players and their teams. But if we want one game of data, what do we have? What else do we have that can give us one game of data? Statcast. Statcast is giving us one game of data. Yeah? So, Statcast batter. Oh, but look, Statcast batter wants a player ID. So now we have like the chicken and the egg problem. Okay, what else do we have that can give us information? And I will skip to the good part. What else do we have that can give us information is the layman baseball acquisition functions. So layman statistics are great, and we see here we actually have batting season by year, regular season, batting stats by year, regular season. Let's see what that gives us. Let's see what batting gives us from layman. All right, so let's pull up batting now. So we have a player ID, we have a year, we have a team ID. Interesting. So it looks like we have a player ID and a team ID. So that's good. What was it? Batting stats. I did call batting stats. Let's see. So let us go. We need one more. That's why I'm struggling here, because there's one more thing we need, and it's batting stats. Yep. So let's pull batting stats. And we want it for one game. So we can really just decide on a game that we're looking at, and then we can decide on the year. So game date 2018 May 13th. Let's call it. Yep. So that's our game date. Now we need to extract the year. So this is when we get into Googling. Turn Python string to date. So I know this already, but just want you to know things are really easy to solve. Like you know what to search by how you are writing out a problem and how you're solving a problem. So from datetime, import datetime. And I wouldn't have known this had I not had to deal with it recently. So we have our game date, and the format is year. It's a 4-digit year, followed by a 2-digit month, followed by a 2-digit day. So that's the year. And then let's get dot year, and that should give it to us. Let's make sure. 2018 is what we got. So game year. Awesome. And then it is data batting stats with a qualifying. So with N number of plate appearances, that's great. So we're going to do a high number of plate appearances right now, just to make sure that we're calling all this stuff right. So we've got game year already. And now we replace this 2017 with game year. And qualifying is 500, so they had to have at least 500 plate appearances for that year. And then let's look at the data. Awesome. So we have a lot of batters here. We have their Fangraph ID, which we don't actually have in this table. So it's not great. But we do have team. So that's good. What else do we have? What do we have in here? We used this for a reason. Maybe we didn't. Because in this one we have Fangraph, season, name, team, age. I'm looking at somewhere someone had a position details. Oh, it was the fielding one. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That was the fielding one that had the position details. Neither of these would have them. But we're collecting batting stats right now, so that's what matters. I'm collecting the position later for something else. So we have the data here, right? How are we going to connect kind of these two things? These two definitely aren't connecting, right? But we have those other kind of couple ways that we can look up a player's info. So let's go back to the player ID lookup. Player ID lookup. Let's bring this in. Pi baseball, player ID lookup. And now wait a minute. First fuzzy equals false. Yeah, we definitely want fuzzy to be false. And look at, we have the names. So finally, it's looking like we might start to get information talking to our player ID lookup, which means we could connect this table, we can connect other tables, we can connect a Statcast with this information with the team. So part of why I'm going through this also is from Pi Baseball, import Statcast batting, Statcast batter. And then start date, and it needs a player, right? It needs a player ID. That's again why we've kind of started going down this route. But Statcast data is great, but we only have, we don't have team information in the Statcast data. So no team information in Statcast data. Can't limit to one team using this method. Need the above batting stats call to grab team info. So if we're using this to get team info, and we need the player ID lookup to be able to connect that to Statcast, how do we get into the player ID lookup using the data we have? Well, let's get a specific team first of all. Team we want. Team equals Atlanta. So we're gonna get the Braves. I don't know why I keep saying that. Now the next thing we need to do is filter the data. Data.loc, data team equals team. Great. So we got 6 players on the Braves in 2018 that had at least 500 at bats. So that's what that's doing. We can now let's bring this down a little bit. Let's do 250 so it doesn't take as long, or so we get more people coming up. Yep. So we got 9 people. No, 10. I can't count coming up here for the Braves that had at least X amount of people. Man, I'm so sorry. The screen froze again. That's what happens when you get really into it. Gonna remove it. Gonna bring it back. Awesome. So we're back here. My bad about that. I don't know why that keeps happening with OBS. I'll have to look it up. I'll definitely look up what's going on, why that's happening. I wonder if those were the messages that I got in the middle of the stream. Yeah, I think it might have been. So anyway, let me get back into what I was doing. All right. Hold on. I will be right back. Okay, we are back. I increased the bitrate a little bit on the stream. It might update, should update. So it's telling me that stream is healthy, that everything is looking good again. So I want to make sure. Just want to make sure I'm giving you the best experience. So that's why I paused for a second. Anyway, so we're back. Grabbing batter info. This is what we're working on today. So here's the purpose, is to evaluate batter information. Pull and batter. It seems like you saw all of these things. Pulling in pandas, pulling in pie baseball, setting the max rows. Remember pulling in pie baseball, setting the max rows. Remember what we talked about on the iPad? So kind of cutting back over to the iPad. Luckily, I did switch over to the iPad for a while. So ideally, you saw that information, but we'll pop over really fast. So we have batter performance, right, is this first table that I wrote out, but it's not the first table we want to produce because it's asking for fastball expected batting average, curveball expected batting average. Well, what's lower than that? Plate appearances and batting average. So this would be table number 1. But then we also think about splits. We also think about handiness, so inning, ballpark, day, night. These are the different splits that we can be betting on. Or be using analytics to help us bet on a game. So table X splits, we'll have a lot of different ways we can go with this. So the first one we see here is handiness. Then we could go by inning, we could go by ballpark, we could go by day-night split. So it just depends. So anyway, that was the iPad stuff. Pretty sure you saw that. Just want to make sure we're all on the right track. All right. Make sure you can see me again. Great, you can still see me. Wonderful. So what we have is player ID, plate appearances, and expected batting average, right? Those are the first 3 things we need. So those are the first 3 things we're going to try to grab. So first up is player ID. We're going to start with one team in one game. We're going to start with one team, one game, because like I said, we want to get as granular as possible. So that way, once we actually try to extrapolate that out, generalize that more, we know how to do it for one. If we can do it for one, we can do it for many. So the first thing we're going to do is grab Layman. So Christopher Layman, it's this. Let me see if I can pull that up for you. Layman baseball database. It's within Pi Baseball, which is nice. So you don't have to come here and do this. But this is where it comes from. It's a guy named Christopher Layman who, I think it's Christopher. Sean, sorry, I don't know why I call him Christopher. Sean Layman, who has a lot of the documentation, has previous seasons in here for fielding, for batting. He actually has access databases for the really old ones. Now he actually has an R package out through the 2020 season, MS Access even for 2021, CSV for 2021. Then you have a MySQL Lite version, you have a SQL version through the 2019 through 2018. So different ways to pull this data down. We have it within what we need. we have it within PyBaseball, so we'll stick to using PyBaseball for that. All right, make sure we're still good. All right, everything looks good on my end. Wonderful. So, batting, we're pulling down his batting info. We're taking a look at it. So we see the player ID here. Yeah, I mean, that's something. Team ID, that's something too. But I'm not really seeing a lot of great information. All right, cool. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on to batting stats. So batting stats, I'm pulling as a function from PyBaseball specifically. And what I want to look at is I want to look at players, their team, season, and then this gives us a bunch of different batting information. Right now, qual equals 250 is actually just a requirement for minimum at bats. So if we come into the docs again, we pull this over, and I show you batting stats. So again, docs are helpful. Like, let's make sure we're using docs. These are some examples of valid queries for it. So it's really just pulling out the year and pulling out the minimum qualification if you want to, for minimum at bats or minimum plate appearances that a player needs in a year to be able to show up. So that's good. So we've pulled that out. Qualification, our qual equals 250, batting stats, and now we're going to check out our data. So here are all our player names, teams, ages, games. It's all really good information. Next up, we have our player lookup, and this is player lookup, which gives key MLB advanced media. So MLB advanced media key MLB AM, and other information to join to other tables in our data. And again, like I said, we're going to start with one team. So we're just going to start with Atlanta, and let's go ahead and look at the batters in Atlanta. And you can see these are the different batters that we have playing for Atlanta at the time. This is 2018, so Freeman is down the Dodgers, but this is 2018. Acuna, I mean, they had a good team, just haven't had the best of luck, especially this year in the playoffs, trying to win. They did successfully pull that off. When was that? Braves World Series. Did they win it last year? They did. They beat the Dodgers last year. So it's funny that Freeman beat the Dodgers last year, then went to the Dodgers this year, and then they just got nailed in the playoffs. I don't know why I didn't remember the Braves one last year, but shout out to the Dodgers. Not the Dodgers. Shout out to the Astros this year. Anyway, so this is the information we have about our batters. And remember, we want Statcast data, right? Ultimately, like, we want to know expected batting average and plate appearances. So this is going to really help us. We do say we have at-bats and plate appearances here, but this is for an entire season. So that, is not going to be granular enough for us once we think about, especially in this example, I'm using a May game. Like, I want all that information. I want the Statcast information from all the games up till that point in the May game, because I have all of April to work off of, and I have the first 2 weeks in May. So that we'll get into a different situation once we start thinking about beginning of season games. Right now I'm working mid-season because it is easier. But once we start working like, okay, I'm in the April games, we're going to have to change it up. We're going to have to use just the previous year's stats. And then for like the hitters and the pitchers, which is like easier, but also not as easy just because it's different. And it's like something we have to think about. So we'll use game date to determine what we end up doing. So anyway, that's this. Just wanted to get you a look at PyBaseball Statcast batter, dot head. Actually, no, because you need to give Statcast batter the arguments it takes: a start date, end date, and then player ID. So we could do. We could do game date, but then we still need a player ID because watch. So player ID is required. If you need to find a player ID, use the player lookup. So, and use their key MLB album. So their MLB advanced media key. Obviously album, but it's MLB AM. So anyway, we're going to use this, right? And this. Because we see we have Mookie Betts and this one wants a last and a first name. So that's perfect. But we can see that the names are not quite how we need them. So how can we pull out that name information? Let's go ahead and drop this down. All right. How can we turn the name series into just, and remember, let's go ahead and do this. Atlanta batters equals data.log data team equals team. Team we want. Got it. We turn the name series into just one last name and one first name to pull down player lookup. So this is Atlanta batters that we're working with, right? So we just want the name column. So great, we got that. Now let's think about one row. Dot values. So this numpy thing, dot value 0 will give us Freeman. Dot 1 is going to give us a letter. Okay, so it's stored as a string, right? Let's try if we string, let's try splitting it. Actually, just shouldn't need the string because it should already be that. And we're going to split it on spaces. Oh, perfect. So what we did, again, let me run you through this again. So Atlanta batters, we only care about the name column, right? So just give us the name column. But 0 is not going to work. We would have to use ilog 0. That would give us Freddie Freeman, and that's fine. But I'd rather turn it into a numpy array values. So now we see everyone. We're going to pull out the first one with 0, Freddie Freeman. That's amazing. But we see it's a string. We see it's recorded as such. So how do we split up the first name and the last name to be able to pass it through to this function with last name and then first equals first name? So let's do a string split operation. What that means is we're going to look for an identifier in the string that's going to allow us to split that. So great, splitting it on a space. Now we get Freddie and Freeman. Let's pull out the second element, Freeman. Amazing. So last name. And that means first name is the same thing, just with the 0. So what if we do PB player ID lookup, last name, and first name? Going to generate the player lookup table. And we found him, Freddie Freeman, with his ID, his retro ID, his baseball reference ID, Fangraphs ID, Fangraphs key. When did he play his first game? When did he play his last game? So he's not done yet, but his most recent game played was 2022. That's cool, but how do we hang on to that? How do we, because we want the whole team, right? So how can we actually hang on to that data and not lose it? Okay, great. So let's think about for batter and Atlanta batters, that's the data frame, remember? Name, because that's the column we're interested in, top values. That's going to give us a list of all the batters on Atlanta. That's giving us a list, or a numpy array, actually. So last name equals Atlanta batters. We have to put that in again. So let's do this because it's gonna make it less verbose. Atlanta batter list, and we're gonna throw that equals to, and now we can just do Atlanta batter list. There, we can do Atlanta batter list here. Right there. Maybe Atlanta batter list. Batter split right on the space. 1 first name. Atlanta batter list. Batter split on the space 0. Because remember, it's Freddie Freeman. And then we want to do player ID lookup with last name and first name. But we don't want to lose that. So we want to do a data frame, Atlanta batters, pd.dataframe. Because I'm going to save that information. So batter lookup. Now we're going to do Atlanta batters equals Atlanta batters. It's pd.concat Atlanta batters with batter lookup. Now, if you don't understand that, I would say walk back through this, right? Like walk back through what's going on here, because we're gonna build obviously a lot on this. There's gonna be a lot more to come, other than what you see now. Make sure everything's working. All right, I'm looking good. But anyway, let's make sure you got that right. So Atlanta batters. And I did it wrong. So why is name an exception? It didn't like that. Where didn't it like it? Let's make sure that worked. No, so that's not working anymore. Did I save Atlanta batters correctly? Okay. Yep, okay, so that works. Fascinating. Oh, it's because I overwrote Atlanta batters. Atlanta batters lookup. Yep, much better. All right, let's run it. Only integers and none in integer Boolean arrays are valid indices. Okay, we're gonna split up again. Let's print batter. So this is just part of it. I mean, sometimes you think you do it right. Freddie Freeman Jr., right? Okay. So we don't need this part. Just batter. And then first name. That's why. Because we print batter and we see that it's the full name. So there's nothing else we need to do. We just need to split it. So this should all be good now. Amazing. So now we have the entire team. Let me see. Clean some things up. Clean that up. Clean that up. Clean that up. Clean that up. So now we have Freeman Freddy, his MLB Advanced Media, Acuna Ronald, MLB Advanced Media. We have all of their names now. And again, remember that was based on the qualification number, qualifying number. It's based on the team. We're able to get all that data. So that's us putting that together. And now, if we have all of these key MLB AMs, we can actually pull these. We can pull Statcast data. Because remember, in order to get Statcast data, we needed a player ID. We needed player ID. So now we can actually work through each one of these player IDs just as we did with these names. We can do the same thing with these IDs and get all the players' performances for this day. So, Atlanta batters. Player IDs. we're going to do Atlanta batters lookup, key MLB AM dot values. And then I'll do one of these players. So it's generating player data. And look at that, Freddie Freeman on our game date, May 13th, 2018. And we're able to see 10 rows, 92 columns. So it looks like he faced 10 pitches this game. He really didn't face that many pitches. Infield shift, we're able to see the infielding alignment, which is really cool. So that's going away next year, which is fascinating. So he had hit into play, and all of a sudden he had ball. Oh, so he walked once, it looks like. Because that would have had to have been, yeah, so he walked. Sorry, I missed that one. So he had four trips to the plate, 1 hit, 3 plate appearances. Because the walk doesn't count. So ball again to start the next one, then he fouled it off, then a called strike, and then he fielded out. So he started the game, fielded out, ended the game, fielded out. And we have that. So can't we just do the same thing? I want to make sure. I think I see the screen frozen again. I do see the screen frozen again. It's awesome stuff. I'm going to have to figure that out. That's not good. I'm going to add it back. All right, there we go. We're back. Cool. So all I have here is that same for loop, right, for the batters. Last name, first name, batter lookup, Atlanta batters lookup. So that's what that table gives us. Make sure you understand that before next week again. And then we wanted to understand batting information. So if the key MLB advanced media key thing is what we need to be able to look players up in Statcast, then we have all of them here. So we're going to do the same thing, right? We're going to turn this into a NumPy array. We're going to grab those values. So let me show you what that looks like. So it's just an array of values, right? That carries all of the advanced media IDs for each of the players on Atlanta in 2018 that had at least 250 plate appearances. So that's how we're getting those. And we can obviously bring that down, right, to 50. And that would change things a little bit. But that's all that looks like, is just this. We're saving that into an object itself. And then we're grabbing the very first instance of that using the 0. And so we can see Freddie Freeman had 10 because we have 10 rows. Freddie Freeman had 10 pitches that he faced in this game. Field out, single, walk, field out again. So a little bit about this. I do see it's 7:55, so I want to go ahead and call it a day. Don't want to go too long. So we got into some good stuff here today. We dove in again to this work. So we decided on a direction. We're going to work with batters. We started writing some code. We got the iPad out. We did some stuff. We did some work on the iPad, right? So we're thinking about tables. We're thinking about the batter performances that we want to grab. How this first one might be a little advanced. We want to make sure that we have the second one down with just plate appearances, just batting average, expected batting average first. Then we can move into table 2, which is splits by pitch. So another split is actually pitch type. Right, but handiness, inning, ballpark, day, night, we can build a table for all of those splits if we want. It's just depending on what makes sense for us, what makes sense for our use case, and what are we betting on. All right, let me pull this off. So some of my focus is really going to be getting us into where can we backtest, where can we bet. right? So all day long, we could be building tables and building tables to try and have the best model and try to predict the best before we even know if our base stuff is going to predict well. And also, it's part of the data collection exercise of making sure we have all of the data in one spot to be able to predict and run things through a pipeline and work it nicely and direct it as it goes, because we'll allow it to accept some inputs, so that way we can direct which tables we're using as we go, etc., etc. So we're going to make sure that we don't spend too long spinning our wheels, and that we don't try to collect too much. So right now, today, we've worked on collecting batter information. The next time we're going to work on more batter information, because it is going to take some time. But over the next week, if you could really just be focusing on trying to collect more batter info, and also being smart about it, right? Like, let's build some functions. Let's build some for loops. Let's grab things. So for loops, not always the fastest, not always the most efficient, but they can be easy, as long as you're running, because they run in constant time. I mean, we're going to run in constant time most of our for loops. So we'll run O of n time, because we're just going to run as the list size increase will increase. So hopefully it's not too much that we're trying to guess, because we are just going to be guessing for one game at a time. So a lot of the times these for loops that run in, sorry, not constant time, these for loops that run in linear time will work just fine for us, because we don't have too many elements in most of our list. Anyway, that's computer science talk, that I'm actually going through and learning right now. So if you've ever heard of Code with Mosh, I'd highly recommend Mosh for learning data structures and algorithms. It teaches it in Java. I don't know much Java, but I do know enough about programming to be able to pick up on what he's talking about and understand what he says. And then I can even pause the videos, right, and go over and check out data structures in Python. So that has helped me a lot and continues to help me a lot even with this project. But anyway, next time we will focus more on batter stuff, and we'll try to build some functions. We'll try to make sure we can modularize our code, and we'll start packing things up, so that way things look nice. And again, we won't spin our wheels for too long. We'll make sure we get into betting sooner or rather than later. But that's it for this week. That's all I have for you. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you again next week.